what makes a customer say yes on a day that they really had no intention of doing so. And that's closing. And closing is fun and a great way to be of service. It is not how to get the Ferrari on your back flap of your thing like every other book about closing tells you. It is actually how to get your customer what they want, how to deliver them from the misery of their indecision, and how to be a change agent that will produce a positive impact on the person that you are helping.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. Well, hey there, folks. Brian Nichols here on the Brian Nichols Show, and thank you for joining us on, of course, another fun-filled episode. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by our friends over at AMP America, folks. Go get the news you need to know without the corporate media bias or fluff. AMP America has podcasts, news pieces, opinion pieces, and more. AmpAmerica.com, your go-to source for, yes, the news without the corporate media bias. One more time, AmpAmerica.com. Also, the Brian Nichols Show is powered by the best heart health supplement in the world, Cardio Miracle. So if you want to learn about how nitric oxide, which is the secret ingredient of Cardio Miracle, can help improve your restless nights of sleep, improve your pump at the gym, but most importantly, help give you a better ticker, like lowering your blood pressure or lowering that resting heart rate. Stick around later in the episode. We'll talk about that and more. But for today's episode, folks, if you've been watching the show for a while, you know here at the Brian Nichols Show, we talk about sales and marketing specifically. How can we bring that to the world of politics? But getting people aware of your politics, your policies, or heck, just in the world of sales, what your service or your product is, that's just step one. You also need to, close the deal. How about that? That's kind of important when you're trying to make some sales. So let's talk to the guy who literally wrote the book on closing called The Joy of Closing, the definitive guide to building trust, getting the deal, and creating happy customers. Joining me here today on the show, said author Bob King. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. How you doing?
Hey, Brian.
I am excited to talk about closing, Bob, but I'm first excited to talk about tea. We were talking about this behind the scenes here before we hit the record button. So, Bob, do us a favor. Introduce yourself here to the Brian Nichols Show audience. And why do you like tea so much?
I like tea. My first sales job was at selling tea. And I sold high-end tea to restaurants and fast casual restaurants. And for a company that's no longer in California and still owes me $16,000 at last check, according to the state. But it did teach me the sales business. And one of the things I learned was the more zeros after whatever it is you're selling, the better a sales job it is. So I don't sell tea anymore.
Well, let's talk about some stuff maybe you do sell. But first, before we go into that world, let's talk about your book, but also why you focus not on the pipeline gen side of things, which is where I like to spend a lot of my time on my side of the house. But we're in the pipeline, right? We've already gone through some of the buying cycle. We're maybe getting towards the end of that sales engagement. We're talking about closing the deal. So where did that focus and time, energy, and effort really build up on your end?
Well, I was in the film business. I had some success, more than some people I went to film school with, but not enough to actually make a living. And then this thing came along called the global economic shutdown. I don't know if everyone remembers 2009. You may have heard of it.
Good times.
And I had to do something to make money. I went on a bunch of Craigslist ads listings. I was offered all of them. But the one that paid to train you was this job selling solar power. And the guy doing the training was a guy who could sell anything to anyone. He had that kind of thing. I kind of knew he was up to no good, but I wanted to know the secret. I love con artist movies The Sting, The Lady Eve, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And I just wanted to know how they did it. And that curiosity kind of led to being trained as a closer, finding out that I'm pretty good at it, and then learning how to train others, and working for scoundrels, and then a little bit better, and then a lot better, and finally, a really reputable company where people wouldn't regret that decision. And I found that I still needed the skills that the scoundrels taught me to be very good at my job closing customers who didn't regret the decision. And so I wrote a book about that.
You did write a book about that. I know you were talking about, what's our boy there? Is it Freddie from Dirty Rotten Scoundrels?
I don't remember the names. It's a fun movie, though. I will say,
well,
yeah.
By the way, peek behind the curtain for the audience who maybe didn't know this. Back, oh man, in yesteryear. So I wasn't in film productions, but I was in theater. And guess what? I was actually one of the lead roles in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, the musical, which was a lot of fun. Got to sing a song called Great Big Stuff. Even Donald Trump's name got dropped in there. Talk about topical for today's show. No, I'm just kidding, Bob. But no, let's talk about...
Your background in musical theater surprises me not in the least. And no one has ever said the title of my book with more enthusiasm and vigor, including me. So I'm going to follow your example next time I say that.
Oh, yeah, feel free to clip that if you'd like. Why not? But let's talk about what you learned from this Dirty Rotten Scoundrel that you mentioned here. Because I think one of the things that we do see, and let's just start out, elephant in the room, people sometimes get nervous when they start talking about sales because there is this misconception of sales being the snake oil salesman, the used car salesman, right? Slaps the car. He knows it's a lemon, but he's selling it to you saying it's the best thing you could possibly get in the lot today. So there is this fear I see in the market. A lot of folks look at sales and they're very apprehensive. So what did you see in learning from that?
Really, Brian, it's really closing. That is the sort of boogeyman of sales. Even very experienced salespeople often see the part that really gives them value, which is earning a customer's trust, working with their resistance and getting them something they want, as this dark art that can only be practiced, by ruthlessness and sheer self-will. And that really wasn't my experience. What happened to me was, I went from a person who was hired 5 times in 19 years to someone who got hired 4 and 5 times a week. And the changes in how I dealt with customers and really just paid attention to them and put them first, became honorable and a man of my word and all that stuff, not only helped me earn that business, but also made my whole life better. And really that was my motivation for writing the book, because it's kind of this crazy story where, you do something for one reason and then it turns out having all these other values. And the book very much talks about that. It's also a how-to book on how to do it. But yeah, the impetus was, you know what? I forgot your question. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, looking at the scoundrels, let's go back to those scoundrels.
So the guy, I was just curiosity, the oldest living man, I don't think in America, he was 110, was in the paper yesterday. And they asked him, why he stuck around so long. And he said, he's just really curious. He considered curiosity to be the secret to his longevity. And that makes a lot of sense to me.
Hey, folks, I want to take a moment to talk about something that has truly changed my life, and that is Cardio Miracle, our incredible studio sponsor. Now, I'll be honest, when I first heard about Cardio Miracle and their claims about improving heart health, I was skeptical. But after using it for just about 2 months, I was absolutely blown away by the results. First, my blood pressure went from being consistently around 140/90 to a much more healthier and manageable 120/80. And my resting heart rate dropped from the low 70s to the high 50s. And I couldn't believe it. But the benefits didn't stop there. I started sleeping better, and I felt more energized at the gym, and my heart felt the best it's felt in years. And it's not just me. Hundreds of you, our amazing listeners, have reached out to share your own incredible experiences with Cardio Miracle. So, what is Cardio Miracle, and how does it work? It's a carefully crafted supplement that harnesses the power of nitric oxide to support optimal heart function. So by increasing nitric oxide levels in your blood, Cardio Miracle helps relax your blood vessels, improve circulation, and it protects your heart from damage. It's like giving your heart the support it needs to function at its best. And here's the best part. We've got an exclusive offer just for you, our loyal listeners here at the Brian Nichols Show. When you head over to cardiomiracle.com and use code TBNS at checkout, you'll get an extra 15% discount on your order. Plus, with their 100% money-back guarantee, you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So, if you're ready to take control of your heart health and experience the life-changing benefits of Cardio Miracle for yourself, just click the link in the show notes or video description. Trust me, your heart will thank you. And don't wait another day to prioritize your health. Join the tens of thousands of folks who have already discovered the Cardio Miracle difference. Head to cardiomiracle.com now and use code TBNS for 15% off your order. Your journey to a happier and healthier heart starts today. And now, let's get back to the show.
So I was really curious about, how you get someone to buy something on the first day. And that curiosity really led to an understanding of buying behavior and how to get someone to make an impulse buy rather than an analytical decision, and how really those are the decisions that we value the most. It's not, people put all this, there's no stigma to making an analytical decision, but there's so much stigma to making an intuitive decision. But at the end of the day, the intuitive decisions that you make based on someone's expertise in the field that you're looking to, make a change. Sales are changes. Anytime, if you're a salesperson, you're an agent of change. And getting people to make a change is never a simple thing. There's no such, anyone who ever said there's an easy sale probably never sold anything.
Bingo.
But getting back to your question,
yeah.
is actually not with sales. The sales is a fairly reputable thing because everyone knows you make good money and, they value your ability to sell. But when you tell people you're a closer, you might as well just like carry your briefcase down a dark alleyway, you know what I mean? And squirrels and rabid dogs are running away from you because they don't even want to like mess with you. And that's really not the case. So I wanted to write a book because even there's so much good now, new thoughts about sales and selling and how to present things. And anyone with an Instagram account knows how to present things and put a filter on something and make it look good. But that is not what gives a salesperson value. What gives a salesperson value is an enhanced ability to earn a customer's trust and get the deal. And so I wanted to write a book about that. And so the first part's my journey, how I kind of came into the information that I came into, which I think is a fascinating story. The second part is a how-to book, how to get those deals. And then the third part is how to, create happy customers, a referral-based business, and really make sure that all the goodwill that you put into getting that deal is reciprocated by that customer never regretting that decision, which also takes effort on the part of the closer. That's not something that just happens because you work for a great company. It's their perception that matters. And we have incredible influence over how they perceive their customer service experience.
Here. Well, peek behind the curtain. My day job is, in fact, in the world of customer experience. I actually have another podcast I co-host called CX Without the BS, and it's entirely talking about the contact center industry and the technology behind the contact center industry. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But one of the
episode on that show, because it's a third of the book, and I think it's where most of the new ground in my book is broken. In terms of like just actual brand new techniques that I happen to stumble onto as a result of trying to create happy customers and successfully creating them. I think there's a lot of new techniques we could talk about in there, but not on this one. Then this is different. It's funny. I also counsel. I have a lot of consulting clients. I'm a closing consultant, right? Or a closing coach. And one of my coaching clients, he had his father doing cold calls for him. And so he booked me with his father, and we figured out how to hone his cold call. So in a way, it is a form of closing, getting someone to, even if it's just the initial contact. I think that's what you were talking about, right? That's kind of the focus. Getting someone to agree to a meeting, you still have to close them, right? They don't just roll over and play dead. They still give you the, I want to think about it, or I'll call you back. And if you believe that lie, you're going to be, not as successful as if you channel your inner 6-year-old and, work with their resistance and handle their objections and allow intimacy to be created, meet them where they are, and then ask again until they say yes.
Here, you know what? Just for the sake of what you just said, listen to this.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about.
Meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Now, granted, my grammar is a little broken there, and maybe that's my, I'm a product of a public education, so that I'm going to blame that. But
I'm ending the sentence with a participle. You know what? Who was it? I think Winston Churchill said, I can't think of a better word to end a sentence with.
Well, I'll take that for the, little feather in my cap. But let's go back to that, right? Because meeting people where they're at is so, like, at the end of the day, that is one of the most important things. And I see this way too often in sales, whether it's outbound sales, trying to build that interest to start out, or to your point, when you're in the closing process, it's not about what you care about. It's not the things that you think they should care about. It's the things they actually care about, the things that are in their purview, and that the stuff that they really, it's an emotional trigger. And you did mention this earlier, Bob, and I want to go back to this. the emotional side of things and then the kind of facts and figure side of things. We, in the world of sales, we know that we have to have both in order to make the sale, right? You have to have that emotional trigger that gets them to say, yes, I'm on board. You've transferred the enthusiasm. You've transferred the energy. You're painting that positive future. But you also have to provide the resources for them to now sit back afterwards and validate that emotional impulse buy, right? So talk to us more about that, because that carries over not just in the booking the appointment world, but also going into now we're actually trying to get pen to paper, moving this sale forward.
I think it really starts with your mindset. If you don't have a mindset that moving forward today is the absolute best thing for your customer, your cause, or your company, and you, hopefully in that order, you are multiplying everything you say to that customer by 0. So you really have to start with believing in what you're doing. And it's, I guess you can manufacture that, but if you're talking in the world of politics, you probably do believe in what you're doing. And so if you just start with this mindset that whatever course of action you're advocating they take is the absolute best thing, and that for them to commit to that today is the best resolution for everybody, that's the first thing. And then there are 7 steps in the book, which, even in a, sort of cold call, all you're getting is an appointment kind of thing, there's still some form of them that you want to touch on each one. The first one would be a warm up and getting to know your customer, paying some attention to them. Oftentimes paying a sincere compliment is really the best way to get a customer to have some intimacy with you. You appreciate some aspect of their creative expression. Hopefully not the way they look.
What would that look like, by the way? Like, give us an example of a compliment that doesn't come across as forced or awkward.
I mean, if you're going in your home, you just say, I love what you've done with the place, and maybe, ask about a piece of art that you find particularly.
Hey, Jim, that's a nice big fish you have on the wall there. Where'd that come from?
Here. And and if you can find common ground out of it, if you happen to be a big fisherman and you see a big fish, you're going to be able to pay that compliment with a lot more skill and follow up than if you don't love a Velvet Elvis painting, and I don't know what's wrong with you if you don't mention the Velvet Elvis painting or the 4 dogs playing poker. I love that stuff. But if you don't, find something else. If you can't find something to appreciate about another human being's creative expression, then that says more about you than about the human being that you're dealing with, because we are all human. We have more in common than we do different. And there's always something you can find, some kind of common ground with anything.
By the way, really quick, I'll give you a real life example. Back when I was carrying a bag and doing some sales, I actually was out meeting with someone in person, and we were in their office and we're getting ready to leave. And I turned, I saw on their mantle, they had, now for folks playing along the home game, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the artist Frederick Remington back in the early 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s. He was like a best friend of Teddy Roosevelt. He's an artist and he's also a sculptor. And I saw there was a Frederick Remington sculpture on his mantle. And my uncle used to be the curator for the Frederick Remington Art Museum in Northern New York. And I just had that moment where I said, is that a Frederick Remington art piece? And his eyes lit up. And all of a sudden you could see it. Like, we started to build that trust. And I'll tell you what, Bob, everything we talked about during that original meeting didn't matter. He took away so much value, the fact that I saw that sculpture and I was able to call it out. I recognized what it was. And then we had a full 20-minute conversation just talking about Frederick Remington, how he used to go, and he was in the part of the Spanish-American War, taking the art and painting the pictures of what was happening. He was more or less documenting the war itself. And it was such a cool conversation to have, all outside the world of business, but it built trust. And this is a guy I still talk to, and this is 10 years ago. We still chat every now and then on LinkedIn. So that built real trust.
If you haven't been to the Teddy Roosevelt Presidential Library in Midtown Manhattan,
I have not.
That was something, or it might be in Chelsea. I think it's in the teens. Anyway, it's in New York, in Manhattan. It's totally amazing. It's in a brownstone. Yeah.
Okay. Not on my list. Thank you.
Frederick Remington in there, or 2. Yeah, it takes the interaction from what can I get from you to who can we be to each other. Yeah. And that's really, I mean, and it actually uplifts you as well. It makes when you sincerely appreciate something about someone's creative expression, it actually transforms who you are to the person, as well as how they perceive you. And that's just a wonderful way to be in the world. It's one of those nice things. The things that make you a closer hopefully make the rest of your life better, not worse. And I really tried to get that into the book. But the first exercise I give in the book is to pay 3 sincere compliments. 1 to a stranger, 1 to someone you see every day, and 1 to someone you live with or nearby.
Interesting. So, and that is more of a self exercise to get comfortable with identifying things outside of what you'd normally look at in an engagement? Is that kind of the thought process there?
It's just uplifts everything. It's a skill that you need to have if you want to create intimacy with people and have them like you and like them. Like, it really helps to find something to appreciate about another human being.
I like that. So finding the good, right? And man, in a world where there's so much bad.
I genuinely loved the way you said the title of my book and the energy that you bring to your broadcast. And I called attention to it, and it probably made you like me a little better. And
100%.
It's a real interaction between two people that, whether or not anybody sells anybody anything, if you're in a sales job, every good sales job I've had was basically commission only. And so if I don't sell that thing, I'm out gas money and time. And if I didn't meet another human being and learn something about the world and have some kind of experience of another human being that's valuable and meaningful and not, going to happen tomorrow about it, then, I got nothing out of it. And that's kind of, and that's my choice. That's my choice, because that opportunity is always there. And people really are fascinating. And, one of the great things about what I've done for quite a while now is you get to see how people make decisions. You get this inside view, and it really is intimate. And if you let it be, and if you just be, if you don't, then that's your life. But the book really invites you to see the meaning of it, find the meaning of it, and allow that to expand and create success for you.
And by the way, we talk about the joy of closing, but
yes,
just because a customer doesn't say yes today doesn't mean they're not going to say yes tomorrow. So I think it's important just to take that away, that even if you don't, go into your CRM and you mark it closed won, that doesn't mean that the person you're talking to isn't still somebody that could be a closed one in the future. Because, and I'll give you a real life example. I was working with a guy back, 2016, 2017. We had a huge contact center deal that we were building for him. It was going to be a great fit. And then for whatever reason, it just didn't work. It still just irks me. There's going to be a huge deal, like a $500K deal, and whatever. It didn't work. But the guy I was in touch with, we stayed in contact. I'd shoot him a LinkedIn message every 6 months. Hey, how's it going? That kind of thing. And fast forward to like 2022, guess what came back up in the conversation? Another contact center deal. And he was no longer at that company. He was at a different company. And guess what? We closed it. We won that business because he didn't care about the product so much. He cared about the person. He cared about the relationship that we built. And he wanted to know that he could not only trust the product, he could trust the person selling the product. And that goes into the subtitle of your book, creating happy customers who not just are happy with the sale, but they're happy with the service, and they're going to be more likely to buy again or buy in the future.
And you built trust. You built trust in that person, and you put on the lab coat. You became this trusted expert. It didn't work out probably for reasons that you were very forthcoming about. And so, there's that whole thing about, I don't care if a customer likes me or not. It's nice when they like me. I care if they trust me. People will buy from someone they don't like but trust. They will never buy from someone they don't trust, no matter how much you like you. So when you and when you're meeting a customer for the first time, there are many opportunities to make them like you. And oftentimes those are in conflict with what will build trust. And it's a real rookie mistake to not build trust when you have that choice. The like thing is it's gravy, but the trust thing is the meat and potatoes.
Bob, we have, and I teach sales guys all day long. That's my job, is teaching sales, coaching sales, and predominantly in the outbound sales. And I see a lot of, just bad habits or misconceptions that I address. But let's go into the closing side of things. What are some of the objections
to touch on? And a salesperson and a closer never starts telling a story about a sales situation that doesn't end in a sale, just to fulfill that prophecy that you helped me remember. The guy's father, went from selling, struggling with cold calls to being the number one cold caller in the company, as his son is on the sales side. So it's a happy story there too.
Perfect. Well, and let's carry this forward. So what are some of the objections you see in the closing side of things that are either common?
I should run and get a book. My book has 13 closes and 10 objections. They're meant to be interchangeable. And I also wrote an article a while ago called 5 Top Lies That Customer Tells. So an objection is not really the customer. Objection usually is an excuse the customer gives you to not make a decision. It's never really a no. It's really just an excuse not to make a decision. And the first thing you have to do is, not be shocked, because that is totally normal behavior. So, you can't take any of that personally, and recognize whether or not it's an objection or a condition. So a condition is something that really keeps them from saying yes, like, they don't own the house, or, they're renting or something like that, where they have no ability to say yes or no. An objection is something they routinely say. The number one is, I need to think about it. That's the classic objection. It's also the very worst because it gives you absolutely nothing to go on. And there's a lot of approaches to it. One of them is mirroring. You just repeat back to them exactly what they said, but with deadly earnestness, and then stop talking. So, you need to think about it.
See how uncomfortable that is, folks? 5 seconds at least, right? Give it 5 seconds at least.
Cannot talk after that. It's funny because we're both salespeople, so we're not going to talk. But
we're on a podcast, so
thank you for talking, Brian. It'd be a horrible example if I said anything after that. But they'll fill that space with what their real objection is a lot of the time, and then you have something to work on. And their objection is not really why they're saying no. Typically, that's just something else they throw out there. But at least it's one you can respond to. And so maybe they talk about the price, and anytime it's down to price, you should be able to get that deal. That's kind of like a wide receiver touching the ball. Once they say it's price, you're going to get that reception, hopefully. Yeah. But recognize they are not saying no to you. They're saying no to making a decision. And that is not something that you want to leave them with, because really you're just leaving them with the misery of their indecision. Hopefully you're a good enough presenter that they want what you have. You've made them feel the pain of their current situation, which is the second step, by the way, feel the pain. You have to find ways to make them feel the pain of their current situation and see the pleasure of your solution, there's a lot about that. I have a technique called the 3 reasons for that, which I did make up myself. I did innovate that, as far as I know. You never know what gets into your consciousness, but it's the 3 reasons why people do anything. There's always usually number 1 is money. The second one I call feels good. And then there's always a feel good aspect to any decision that, involves a sale or a closing. And then the third one is always timing. There's always good, valid reasons for going forward today. And when you present that as the third reason, it gives you a chance to talk about them in a way that's not like, do this now because there's a sale. It's just, well, here's what's going to change in the next whatever period of time. And here's why going forward right now allows you to take advantage of that timing. So there's all that. And then we could go into more. What was the rest of I'm trying to only talk in 60 to 90 minute. Sorry, 69. That's important.
Well, let's
69-second answers, because I tend to ramble on a little bit.
No, this is perfect. And let's maybe take the objections piece, and let's also maybe flip it a little bit to bad habits on the seller side, because by the way, Bob, I see this all the time, right? I see the best of folks in the outbound sales world. They go into an AE closing world maybe, and they drop the ball all the time, and they just can't figure out why. And I usually see it's probably because of bad habits. So talk about that for us.
Number 1 rule of closing is, after you ask for the deal or present a price, stop talking. That's the number 1 rule. And it's the hardest one to follow because it's awkward. But first of all, if you don't stop talking, they can't say yes. You may already have the deal if you just shut up and let them say, yeah, that sounds great. That's the first thing. The second reason is you want to know where to go next. And if you let them talk, you will intuitively find a way to deal with what their real objection is. But if you just keep rambling on, it's never going to happen. So the number 1 rule is to stop talking after you either present. First, when you present price, stop talking. And every time you ask for the deal, and I say every time because you need to ask more than once. You deal with whatever, given the fact that blah, 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 we just talked about, doesn't it make sense to get started?
Crickets.
You have to say something when I do that, because I would be such a bad example if I spoke after that. And, it's not, how you ask for the deal. There's also 1,001 ways to ask for the deal. And you ought to be really good at least 50 of them.
Usually I would see it's the uncomfortableness of the silence. The sales guy usually feels compelled to break that silence because they're like, well, if they're not saying anything, something must be wrong. But usually they're trying to figure out the best way to verbalize what it is the actual objection is. And I'm so glad, Bob, you painted that picture, because I see this all the time, right? Like there are so many sales guys who I've coached in the past that they just feel that they need to control everything. And I think if we just kind of take a step back sometimes and we realize that it's not us who really needs to paint the picture of where we need to go, but rather we can get that right from the customer themselves in their own words if we just give them the space to tell us.
Well, it's a good instinct to want to control things because it's there. We tend to go on leads, and it's called a lead because we lead them for most of the appointment, right? So the two exceptions to that are the warm up, right? Every warm up's different. Every customer's different. You're going to find different common ground. You're going to find, and you're on the lookout. You're asking how, what, why, when questions to get them to talk and give you clues as to what their pain points are and all kinds of, and why they're doing this and all that stuff. And you should know all that for whatever it is. And then there's the presentation, which is, everything from feel the pain to presenting price. And that's talking about your company, talking about the product, whatever other bells and whistles are in there, doing a forecast, letting them see the light at the end of the tunnel so they're not panicked about the fact that you haven't talked about price and you've been there for whatever amount of time, that's all outlined in the book. And then when you get to closing, every close is different. You cannot close. And that's what makes it fascinating is you really are. So like the warm up, that's a moment to actually become interested in your customer again. Right? Because if they're spouting out stuff during your presentation, yeah, you're going to respond to it, but you mostly want to make that a neat look. Hopefully your pitch is strong enough. And this is another thing that oftentimes, especially B2B B2B clients, they don't really have a pitch. Home improvement people or in-home people, they always have a pitch and it can be improved, but they know what they're going to say usually for those things, or at least they know the general topics. They ought to know everything they're going to say. Because not knowing everything you're going to say about your company is like driving your car and not knowing which pedal stops or starts it. You're not a very good driver and you're not paying attention to traffic and you don't know when they're nodding and you don't know when their eyes are rolling back in their head and they can't wait to get you out of there. So you need to be able to do all that stuff, but at least they have, things they're going to say or topics. A lot of times with B2B, they really don't have that. And it really amazes me how much more successful that kind of salespeople can be if they just have a pitch. And then, but anyway, once you get through all that, then you get back to the part that is truly intimate, always unique, and for me, endlessly fascinating, which is what makes a customer say yes on a day that they really had no intention of doing so. And that's closing. And closing is fun and a great way to be of service. It is not how to get the Ferrari on your back flap of your thing like every other book about closing tells you. It is actually how to get your customer what they want, how to deliver them from the misery of their indecision, and how to be a change agent that will produce a positive impact on the person that you are helping. That's what closing is. And I want to take all that stigma away and reveal it for what it truly is, that uplifts your client, doesn't take anything away from them.
The book is The Joy of Closing. Yeah, the definitive guide to building trust, getting the deal, and most importantly, creating happy customers. Bob, we like to do a little segment here as we wrap the show up, and that is called Final Thoughts. So let me kick things off really quick, and then I'll turn things over to you. My final thoughts for today is that this practice that we're outlining today, the joy of closing, it transcends the world of sales. It transcends the world of business. It can help you in so many different areas of life, whether it's talking with your friends, your significant other, your kids. These are all tools and skills that you can implement into just being a better person. And Bob, I want to just highlight something you said. It will help you be a better person if you start incorporating giving real genuine compliments to folks. What was it? The people in your family, your significant other, your friends,
someone you live with, someone you see every day.
That's huge, because not only is it going to help you start to see the positives, but it's going to help reframe your mind. We had our buddy Michael Pickens on the show, and he was talking about how you can reprogram the way that you approach things just by the thoughts you put into your head and the things you surround yourself with. So this is literally in that exact same spirit. But guess what? If you are in the world of sales, it's going to help you make the sales. It's going to help you build happy customers. It's going to help you create trust. And by the way, you're going to have some fun along the way. That's my final thoughts. Bob, what do you have for us from your end? Also, where can folks go ahead and buy The Joy of Closing?
The Joy of Closing is on Amazon as an audiobook that I recorded 3.5 hours. It is Kindle and it's a paperback. So whatever your jam is, you can get it on Amazon worldwide. And I have a website, the Joy of Closing, this joyofclosing.com. And, you can contact me there through the link there as well. And I'm on LinkedIn. My final thought is that everyone is a closer. If you have ever picked the movie on a Saturday night, or what book your book club's going to read, or gotten your kids to clean their room or their plate, you have successfully closed someone. So really, you need to tap into, and you may have done it well, and you may have done it awkwardly, and either by threat or through good intentions. But everyone out there has been a closer, and everyone out there has been closed. There is nothing. The only thing better than finding what we want and knowing it is helping someone else find what they want and knowing it. And really, that's what the book's about. It's how to channel that into, a sales job, but also make that a part of your life. So it can answer. And if you ever bought a timeshare or a car on a day you didn't think you would, it'll also tell you how and why they did that. So it answers a lot of mysteries and opens up a world of good, hopefully, to people in this profession.
Hear, hear. All right, folks. Link for The Joy of Closing is going to be in the show notes. All you got to do, click the show description, head down below. You're going to see the link right over to the Amazon. If you do order a copy, please take a picture with the book and send it over to Bob. All those social media links are going to be in the show notes. I love the guests. Love to hear when folks here in the audience have heard them on the show. And yes, go out and buy their books.
Mention Brian, and I'll give him a shout out for sure.
There you go. Go ahead. Give the show a shout out, folks. Thank you for joining us. Bob, it's been a pleasure, folks. Go ahead. Support the show. When you do, tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty. Bob, thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you.
All right, folks. That's going to wrap up my conversation with Bob King. I hope you got some value from it. And if you did, please do me a favor. Go ahead, give it a share when you tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty, Twitter and Facebook. Also, you can find the show on your favorite podcast platform or video platform. If you're listening to the podcast version of the show, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever it is you get your podcast content, just hit that download all unplayed episodes, and you can get all 860 plus episodes of the Brian Nichols Show. Just do me a favor. When you do that, also go ahead and give us some love. Give us a rating and review. Every little bit helps us reach more people. 5 stars would be appreciated. And for the video version of the show, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, wherever it is you want to go ahead and watch the program, do so on your favorite platform. Just please hit that subscribe button, hit that little notification bell, and of course, head down below into the comments. Let us know your thoughts. Do you think we're on the right path with how to be effective in closing? And can you, in fact, find some joy in closing? We want to hear your thoughts. Continue the conversation down below. And one final plug, please support the folks who support us, our phenomenal sponsors, which include Cardio Miracle, Amp America, yes, our good friends over at Liquid Freedom Energy Tea, and more. All those links for the sponsors are on the homepage at briannicholsshow.com and attached with today's episode. Folks, that's all we have for you today and all we have for you this week. By the way, we have some really cool things that are going to be happening here for the Brian Nichols Show. We're rearranging some of our scheduling and maybe doing some more solo episodes. I don't know. We're going to talk about that coming up next week. So please stick around, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single time we have a brand new episode hitting your RSS feed or your YouTube's, Rumbles, or wherever it is you catch the show. So with that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Bob King. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.